Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be discussing structures of marketing processes. That's a mouthful to say, but essentially what we're going to be looking at is uh, how does a piece of marketing go from its inception in the office, dreaming what we're going to do, to actually executing it, to delivering it. We're going to look at the company structures. We're going to look at marketing department structures, bearing down into who does what job for a marketing agency or for a marketing department, and then also what jobs are available within the marketing departments. So this is going to help you twofold. For those getting ready to graduate, it's going to give you a better scope of what jobs are actually available in marketing, how much you can make doing those jobs, and kind of where you fit in the whole schema of a marketing department. Second, this is going to help you with your final because we're actually going to go deeper into having you look through a project as a project manager, looking at a company, what's their brand currently, and how can we improve that brand. So in order to do that, you need to understand all the steps that go into actually creating a piece of marketing, communications, albeit web stuff, anything you need as far as marketing goes. That being said, let's go deeper into how marketing materials get made. So first off, I want to do a quick overview on just company structure. I'm sure you've been through this a lot with all the business school you guys have been doing and that sort of thing, but let's just hit it real quick. What does the company need? Well, you need a finance accounting department, you need HR, you're going to need administration, talking to your C-level people, the guys that like steer the boat. You're going to need IT for sure these days. You're going to need marketing, and you're going to need management. Each of these departments are going to have their own separate managers. Each of these departments are going to have their own skill set and delineation of people taking those roles. But that's just a quick overview. We're going 10,000 feet, right? So diving into that, let's take a closer look at the marketing department. So inside a marketing department, whether it be a marketing agency or whether it's a actual marketing department within a company, there's some few variations, but essentially you'll have your project managers or your marketing manager. You have developers, they do the coding, all that sort of thing on the back end of, let's say, websites. You have graphic designers, you have copywriters, editors, you have social media people, and then you have SEO, SEM, and media buyers. Those are a few different positions, but I threw it all in there just because I was running out of room. Seriously, but if you look at the marketing department's main goal is to do promotion, strategy, vision, development, branding, research, ideas. Your main role is to take the product the company's selling, stuff that the salespeople are selling, and you actually help them sell that product. We can do that in more direct ways, as in actually creating advertising, and that's going to be public facing, or we could do it other ways, such as creating a brand or persona around that particular product. So it works both ways. One's more of a long game, one's a short game, but since this is branding, obviously we're going to focus more on that in this class. So looking at resource allocation, as with anything and any department, we go through the same kind of steps. We do planning, execution, tracking, and reporting. So if it's a creative department, how do you do this? Well, let's say you're doing a piece of creative for a newspaper advertisement or a digital display ad. You're going to get with your team of creatives. You're going to go over the specs, what size is the ad, not unlike what we did for our posters. What does the client want? What copywriting are we going to add? So the copywriting department is going to have some say in that. And then also what colors we want, what field we want, what stock images, logos, all that type of thing. This also goes for developers. If the developers are creating a landing page for one of our ads, they're going to need the size, the scope, the location, all that sort of thing. This goes all the way down into the budget when we're deciding how much money do we actually have to run this campaign or build this brand. Planning, execution, tracking, reporting, right? And distribution. Once we put a piece of media out there, we need to plan how we're going to distribute it. We're going to see how we execute the distribution, and then, of course, we're going to track that distribution. For example, how many visits did we get to a particular website? How many conversions did we get on a landing page? So, possible solutions. Okay, well, when it comes to any kind of marketing or branding goals, there's going to be a few different avenues you can take, and it really depends how your company is set up. So the first would be in-house. That means we have an in-house marketing team. Everything's underneath that roof, from marketing manager to your copywriters to social media people. Now, if it's a smaller business, that's probably something that you're going to find more often. As I said, all marketing services are run through an in-house marketing department without involvement from external parties or and advertising agencies. So the benefit of this is you get more expertise and brand knowledge, meaning everyone that's involved in that department already works for that company. So they're going to understand what are our, our key goals and values. What's the culture of the company? It's going to be a lot easier getting the brand or feel right on any of your ads or your branding if that person's worked for the company for a long time, right? It's also going to be lower cost than an ad agency, and you can control your costs more. So let's say I'm working as a marketing manager for an in-house place, and I have a graphic designer underneath me, maybe a copywriter. Well, the truth of it is all three of us are probably going to have 4 or 5 other jobs we're doing for the company. Our main goal isn't just going to be straight hard marketing. So in a way, you get a little more value by having people in-house than you would. The only problem is you're going to have a broader skill set rather than specialist. So, for example, I can do SEO. I can write really well, so I do copywriting and I do email marketing. I do all sorts of stuff like that. So I have a very broad knowledge of that. But if I was working for an agency, I would just do one of those things. Another thing with in-house is there's a little longer turnaround time. The main reason for that is that we have multiple jobs, as I had mentioned before. So you're not always going to have time to focus on one thing. So the second option is an agency, a full service agency, also known as like an ad agency. So this is where the marketing needs are performed outside of the company, meaning anything that has to do with marketing, we're going to have a contact at an agency, probably a project manager that's going to take care of all of our needs. We'll meet with them every week, every month, and work on specific pieces of marketing. Now, the benefit, of course, is you get expert marketing knowledge as long as you're going with a good, reputable agency. In that, they're probably going to have some industry connections. They're going to understand Google AdSense better. They're going to understand how to use certain tools without sending your staff to training and getting them onboarded, which is expensive. Also, you find people that have proven success rates. The problem is it's hard to control cost. So the main thing an agency wants to do is get their billing up, right? I've worked with a lot of agencies. I've worked at agencies before where our number one goal is to get X amount of billable hours for a client, not really caring how much work we actually get done, which is probably unethical, but that's just, they set budgets and they expect to have this much cash flow. So you got to make up work sometimes. That's hard. Like you don't always have a client that's going to give you free will just to work on as much of what you can as long as you can. But agencies are always trying to push that, trying to justify their reason for being there. So you're not always going to get good, accurate data from the analytics either. Also, one thing to control or look out for, is that they may not have the same vision or understanding of your product as you do. So I've ran into this a lot. Like, let's say you're working with a skateboarding company, or you are the skateboarding company, and you go get an agency. Well, maybe that agency hasn't really done much skateboarding work, but they've worked in the music industry, so they think they know, kind of how your brand and how your target audience works. Well, unfortunately, that's not usually the case. And if you're working on a highly niche industry, the agency will lie and tell you know how to do it. And then you get a message out to your customers and you realize you look like an idiot. Like it doesn't make any sense at all. And that's where brand loyalty and like brand ethics comes in, is you want to be true to your customer. And if you keep switching agencies or you work with someone that doesn't know your particular audience, you're going to look like a fool and you're going to lose customers. So what's the third option? Third option is what I called hybrid, and I made that up myself. I don't think there's really a term for it, but this is what I'm most familiar working under. I've either worked for straight agency work where we have a client and we are their whole marketing department, or I've been a marketing director for a company I work for, and then we bring on a bunch of freelancers and outsource a lot of the work. That way you can save a little money and you can piecemeal out the work. For example, let's say we have a email newsletter that goes out every week. Well, I may put the newsletter together and hit the send button and do all the tracking and analytics, but I have a graphic designer that does all the headers and all the graphics. I have maybe 2 people writing 4 or 5 articles for the newsletter. It's my job as a director to put all that together, or even something I would have a marketing manager do if the company is big enough. So the good part is experts can be retained as needed. So if you have, let's say, something that you do quarterly, you can bring on a little more staff for quarterly work, like if it's a big kind of magazine or something you're doing. But as you don't need them, you can kind of release them, so you're not incurring that cost annually. There's significantly less onboarding costs since they're paying for their onboarding, since they're bringing the experience to the table. The problem is you can have inconsistent results. And also, it requires a full-time coordinator in-house to handle that. That's usually can be the job of a CMO or a marketing manager, even director level position, where their job is basically pulling all these strings and making sure everyone's getting everything turned in on time, that communication is clear, and that can be really hard. I recommend using something like Slack or Asana. That's really good for communicating with teams, tracking team progress, and doing big projects. So write that down if that's something you're interested in doing. It's Slack and Asana, and also Trello is a very good app for using that. Okay, moving along. Marketing workflow. So, as the subtitle suggests, we're going to talk about how marketing materials get made. One second. Okay, so there's planning, meeting, or there's planning, meetings, there's team meetings, and then there's actually deliverables and execution. So typically the layout for most agencies or marketing departments are we meet every Monday. We talk about, everything that got delivered on Friday, what projects are coming up, what do we have to do in the next 1 to 3 months or that quarter. We're trying to look ahead at least 2 weeks and getting stuff done consistently. What resources does each manager have? So if I'm at an agency, usually there's going to be, 4 different managers with 4 different clients, and then they have a team underneath them, and we share some of those resources. Also, timetable for completion. So I have a project. Let's say I'm doing a landing page for a client's self-help books, right? So I need X amount of landing pages. It's going to take this much work. I need this many hours from a developer, this many hours from a copywriter, this many hours from a graphic designer. So I bring that into this planning meeting, and I let the rest of the project managers know, here's what I need from the resources. They do the same. Typically, this is also going to be held by upper management within the company, and they kind of make sure everything is flowing in the right directions. Once I have my allocated hours, the amount of work I'll be able to get from my resource team, I go into my team meeting. So I have the social media lead, the graphic design lead, and the developer lead in these meetings. And I go, hey, how much work can you guys handle this week? Will you be able to get my project done? And they say yes or no. Like usually they say yes because we're trying to get stuff done every week. So we also do that. We figure out who's going to be able to get what done, okay? And then we go from the prior week and we say, okay, what worked last week and what didn't? Like, what can we change? Usually we're running A/B test, that sort of thing, to see what ads people are clicking on, what ads they aren't, and then we make our necessary changes. So that's where the results portion of your analytics and KPIs, key performance indicators, that's where all that plays in. And then the team meeting adjourns, and the team leaders, they go to their specific teams and say, okay, here's what work we have to do for the week. Okay, the next step is deliverables. So throughout the week, things are going to get finished. As a project manager, I'll get certain ads or websites on my desk, and my job is to basically do final proof of everything, make sure all the graphics fit in right, make sure all the copy's good, make sure all the spelling's dialed in. This is super important. So you're the last person as a project manager that's going to see this before it gets sent off into the internet. So it's very important that you're making sure all this stuff is on point, because I'm either going to publish it or send it to my client at that point, as an ad agency would. So it's very important. And also you're going to set up tracking and KPIs for that particular piece. All right, moving right along. Whoops. I also want to talk real quick about a book called Sprint. So Sprint basically takes everything that I just described to you and puts it in a book and teaches you the process. So some of you may be going into your own businesses. Some of you may be trying to get jobs at marketing departments. all sorts of things, I'm sure. But this book is invaluable. What it does is it teaches you the process to go through and actually solve problems and start release products, release anything. So, for example, you make a map and you choose a target, you sketch out competing solutions, decide which solution is best, you build the prototype, and then you test it on the customers. This is a process that can be used for any product on any vertical, anywhere basically. I just threw it in there because the last ad agency I worked with, we lived and died by this model, and it was by far the most effective way I ever saw work get done. We do weekly sprints where we'd say, here's the job we need to get done. We'd work through the week. Then at the end of the week, if you finished it, you got to ring a bell and you finish your sprint. If you didn't finish your sprint, that meant you were probably working over the weekend to get it done. So it took some time to realize how much work can actually get done and how many resources it takes actually to get that work finished. So this is all stuff you guys should be thinking about too, because you're going to all fit somewhere in to this system, and you need to realize that planning is absolutely essential. And when it comes to making marketing materials, understanding how long it's going to how long it will take to make something is very important. Realizing what you can tell your vendors, your clients, and your customers how much you'll actually get done. Okay, so what all can you outsource, right? So we're talking about outsourcing, how it's effective. Well, where do you fit in this equation? Well, you need to figure out what teams your skill possesses, what the strengths and weaknesses are, and what all can be outsourced. Well, I probably wouldn't recommend outsourcing project management because that's your core. That's going to be basically what your role is going to be. You're either going to be a manager, owner, or project manager. Okay. Some things I see outsourced a lot: social media management. I see content development, like writing blog posts, that sort of thing. I see designers, tons. Even video production stuff, maybe not doing the actual video, but if you need narration, go to a site like Fiverr. I mean, there's tons of freelance sites out there, but it's basically like all the little work that comes together to make the thing happen can be outsourced. Okay. So these are all jobs. These are all roles that you could take on. I recommend always being like the captain of your ship so you can steer it in the right place. But ultimately, anything that you can do, you got to ask yourself, am I better doing this or am I better paying someone else? And if you can do it cheaper, you always outsource it. Okay. So where are the jobs, right? That's what all it comes down to. Okay. Well, when you look at upper management, typically that's going to be your CEO, CFO, chief marketing officer, your marketing director even, and your communications director, that sort of stuff. These are executive level people. This is probably $100,000 plus, and it'll take you working 10 years to get that high, whether you're doing in-house stuff or whether you're working for an agency. So it's a long haul, and you got to keep in mind, even if you're starting at a job you don't like, it's just a learning process to get where you're going to end. Second spot is where most of us are going to live for most of our careers, is middle management. These are the people that are making between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, maybe 60, and 5 to 10 years experience. So this is where you're going to take all these little skills you're learning now, and you're eventually going to be a project manager, marketing manager, and different verticals such as analytics, social media, branding, communications, media buying. These all have their own managers too. Okay. Then going into the work troughs is the production team. So these are the people. There's a lot of us. There's a lot of people doing this. This is the bulk of your team. Okay. There's going to be a myriad of trades, but they're going to be highly specialized. And you're going anywhere from interns that are working for nothing to maybe the upper end of that, around $50,000 a year. My advice is probably, if you're starting out, is like, let's say, a content creator for social media, you're probably going to make about $30,000 a year. And that's with experience if you've been actually creating your own stuff through college. So that's just the reality of it. Some jobs in there is graphic designer, web developer. That means actually putting the website together, like with Squarespace, or actually knowing how to do the coding. Video production work, analytics. So you probably want to know how to use Google Analytics. SEO, SEM, which is search engine optimization or search engine marketing. So we can go a little deeper into the difference of those, but that's organic versus paid search. Media buyer, that's someone that's actually purchasing the ads on, let's say, a social media platform or through experiential marketing. Um, there's a whole different, that's a whole huge thing in itself. Social media, also another big thing. You can be a content writer for social media, or you could be buying advertising on social media. And then copywriters, which can also go in with the social media, writing blogs and that sort of thing. So that being said, if you have interest in a few of these fields, I would suggest learning as much as you can. Specializing in 2 to 3 things is going to be the best. That being said, beyond this course, I'd recommend looking at Google. Google has a lot of certification programs. You can be certified in Google Analytics. You can be certified in Google Ads, all sorts of different things. And none of those things hurt to add to a resume, especially if you're in between school and finding your career job. Okay, so wrapping it up, I'm going to tell you the reality of this whole thing. The reality of the whole thing is most of us are not specialists, even if we're working for ad agencies. We're not master of jack. We're jacks of all trades and masters of none. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've hired more people that are just generalists than anything else. They're just smart, capable people that are willing to tackle a hard to do task. And I think when you're working on this project for the final, you really have to think in that scope, as what I'm trying to teach you is a little bit about everything. And that's really hard to do in 16 weeks, but that's kind of the whole purpose. So other than that, that's the lecture for today, for this week. I'm always available by phone, email, if you need to get in contact, and look for that final to come out later this week. All right, thank you.